Okay folks, let's start off nice and easy with this whole Fusion thing and get to know Fusion simply through using it and some of the features therein. Before we get started, one of the things that I want to do is draw your attention to your mouse, specifically the buttons on your mouse. We're going to use the mouse to do a lot of active movements in this program. So obviously you have a left click on this side. That's a bad version. You have a left click over here, you have a right click here, but also be aware that your mouse roller does more than just go back and forth. It also can be clicked on and held as a button, and that has specific impact in Fusion. For example, when I roll my roller toward the object, or roll my mouse toward my screen, it zooms out. When I roll my mouse away from the screen, it zooms in. That's going to be important for you to understand. Also, when I hold my mouse button down, my roller button itself, not left or right, but the actual roller button, it allows me to do a pan, which sort of moves the screen around. We're going to do a lot of that as we get going, so make sure that you're kind of aware that you can push down on your roller button on your mouse and actually get a third button. So real quickly across the top, most of the tools that we're going to need are kind of in this general zone. Starting off, down here we're going to have a timeline. I like to draw on my screen. So down here we're going to have a timeline that we will use eventually. Up here are going to be the tools we're primarily going to use. And over here is going to be the building of models. So as we create things, more things are going to pop up right here that we'll be able to watch out for. Down here, these are actually tools that we'll use to kind of change settings and make adjustments to the screen, how things are shaded, that sort of thing, which we'll get into that later on. So anyway, there's your basic interface. Over here, up at the top, you can barely see it there, we have our typical file, save as, those kind of things, although they're based on cloud. Again, we'll get into those a little bit more. Just want to do a brief introduction of the space. But let's get started. Let's really go ahead and use this program to create something, create a drawing, or actually in this case, create a model. What I want to do is start off by working off the premise that you start this program and you create things in 3D by sketching something, and then you extrude it into an object. So what I did right there was I drew a sketch and then essentially used another tool, so to speak, to create it into a 3D object. It's almost, you can also think of it this way. If you take a glass of milk, or a glass itself, and you fill it full of milk, what shape does the milk take? Well, it takes the shape of the glass. That's essentially what we're about to do. So I start off by taking my cursor up to create a sketch. You see it right there. The icons may be different from what you have depending on what version you're using, but it's about the same place every time. Create a sketch. And it first wants me to click on a plane to draw on. And so I'm going to click right here on this center plane, and you'll see the screen flip toward us. And all I'm going to do next is use the tools as they've changed to maybe use my line tool to just simply draw a triangle. One line after the other, just a click, click, and close it back up. Hit escape on my keyboard, and so my sketch is done. I can do some more. I can draw a line this way, down, this way, and back up, and hit escape to finish. So once it's actually made, these sketches are made. These are 2D shapes. There's nothing special about them. I'm really done sketching, so I will hit finish sketch over here. And then I'm going to choose a tool that's going to turn it into a 3D object by going to either create and finding the extrude button, or hitting the extrude button right here. A window pops up and it says select your profile, which is this right here, so I click on that, and I also click on this, so I have two profiles. And then I can even grab this little triangle and pull my objects up. When I'm done, I make sure it says new body right here, and I hit OK. And I've created a 3D object just like that. Just a simple sketch and then a 3D extrusion. Pause the video and go through the same steps I have and create something kind of similar. Pause the video and do that now. Alright, so well done. And now you've created a 3D object out of a 2D, so we're going to do another one. I'm going to go up and hit the create sketch, and I'm just going to click somewhere over here in the screen, or I can click on this little panel I can't because of my objects there. I'm going to click over here in the screen so it's just nice and flat, and it orients it this way. Notice that we're facing a different direction of the objects, but that's no problem. Watch what happens. I go click my rectangle here, and I click and click. Notice I'm not clicking and dragging, I'm just clicking and clicking. And I say finish sketch. Notice the profile is oriented this way. I hit extrude, grab my triangle, or grab my arrow, pull it out. Or I can just type in a value right here. And there's my third object. Go ahead and pause the video and do another one. Alright, let's do another one. Click my create sketch. This time I'm going to click on the side of my object so I'll be able to draw on something else. Click here and I zoom in, and this time I'm just going to grab this circle tool that you see. Click, click, and click. Hit escape on your keyboard to stop the command, and now we have a circle drawn. You'll notice that it is highlighted as closed. I'll hit finish sketch. And now, to help me understand what I'm looking at, because it doesn't really seem very 3D right now, I wanted to do an orbit. And you can come down and push this button right here to click and drag and get the screen to orbit around, or you can hold down the roller button on your mouse and hold down your control key on your keyboard, your shift key on your keyboard, and you can also orbit in 3D. So now that I see this circle, I go to extrude, select my zone, and let's just say that I change this value of distance over here to 15 and hit OK, and now I have an object in 3D. Go ahead and pause the video and do that now, please. Alright, let's do another one. Create a sketch. This time I'm just going to click, I don't know, maybe on top of this surface, or I can actually just click out in space too, doesn't really matter. We're just sketching along. So I'll click right here, and I'm going to draw maybe something with a few more edges, something a little bit less triangle or rectangle. Notice that when I come back, I always hit my start point so that it closes, and also notice that it becomes a sort of a shaded in space. After that's done, I hit escape, finish sketch, and hit my extrude button, click, and I can type in a value here or just grab my little arrow and pull it up and say OK. So in that, we have created several sketches. Go ahead and do that as well. Pause the video and make this model. Just kind of rough it out. Let's see how you do. Alright, so let's do another one. I'm a big believer in repetition. Click here to create a new sketch. This time I'm going to kind of zoom in so I'm specifically selecting on that plane right there. I like to draw on the bottom. There we go. And this time I will use my line command to make a rectangle. Doesn't have to be perfectly a rectangle, it can be something like this. I hit escape, and this time I'm going to go back and hit my circle. And I'm going to use my roller button by rolling away and technically zooming in. And I'm going to click to create a circle right there and hit escape to stop. As in all these other cases, when you're done sketching and ready to extrude, you have to hit finish sketch, which is down here or up here. And I say shift, push down on my roller to orbit a little bit. Hit my extrude button, which I can also find by hitting create and extrude. And I click on only this zone right here. Notice that I didn't click inside the circle. Notice that it also has left this open. I can now type in a value, we'll just say a value 50, although you could type in any value you want to. If you don't like that value, you can change it to something else and say OK. And now we've created an object with a hole in it because we drew the hole in it when it was still in the sketch mode. Go ahead and pause the video and do that now. Alright, so that's a good little exercise. You've done several sketches and several extrusions. It honestly can be that simple. We'll do more advanced stuff as we move along, but in this little episode you've created some structures in 3D. You're learning to use the roller button on your mouse You're learning to hold down the roller button on your mouse and hold down the shift key to get an orbit. And you've gone from the sketch menu to drawing and also creating extrusions after you're done sketching. I do want to point out that as we created things, look at our timeline. Our timeline has now increased, and you can see it goes from sketch to extrusion to sketch to extrusion to sketch to extrusion, sketch, extrusion, sketch, extrusion. Hopefully you're seeing the pattern. You have to go through a sketch, finish the sketch before you can turn it into an extruded 3D object. One last thing that I'll show you, as we created more objects, our bodies right here, if I hit this expand button, has now gone from 1 to 2 to 3 to 4 and to 5 because we've been adding new 3D bodies as we went along. Alright, that's it for now. We'll see you on the next.